When bluegrass music and country music started out in its early days, most of the stars started out on radio. They would get the biggest station they could find and audition and get a job on that station, and that show was usually sponsored by a laxative company or a flour company or some sort of a tonic or remedy or something, and that star would play that show 15 minutes every morning. It did a couple of things. It taught people how to sell, to be on time, to run a show, to make it the most effective, because they were selling their products and their pictures and their songbooks on there. And they were also promoting the shows they were doing that night. So they would...
All right, so radio. Look, a big radio show. Free on the streets of Brookville. Saturday night, September 5th, with Jess Hillard in person and his West Virginia Hillbillies. This show is sponsored by the businessmen of Brookville, Indiana. Very cool to look at these old newspapers and to think, once upon a time, it was the main way of advertising. Times have changed. Very interesting.
Work the area of that radio station and play drive-in theaters and courthouse squares and just schoolhouses, and then they'd come back the next morning and they was on the radio 5 days a week.
The Monroe brothers soon stood out, even in a crowded field of brother duet acts.
Okay, I just wanted to focus in on the brothers here for a minute. All right, so there's Bill, big brother, on my right. Check out that watch, pretty spiffy. And little brother over here, I forget his name, a dapper looking duo, right? Just ready for business. You can tell these guys are musicians. Well, they're walking around with guitars, but there's the swagger, man. The very intentional tilt of the cap. True sign. True sign. OG type stuff.
Blazing tempos, Charlie's supercharged guitar playing, and Bill's innovative mandolin arpeggios gave a new dimension to their repertoire of old-time and gospel standards. The record industry was growing too, and in 1936, a talent scout for RCA Victor sent them a telegram. "We must have the Monroe brothers on record. Stop. We won't take no for an answer. Stop. Answer requested."
Okay. So the word gets back to the big wigs at the record company. They hear about Charlie and Bill just smashing it. Just handling business, right? Doing their thing. Bringing them in. And somebody decides to send a Western Union telegram. Now, my audience skews a little older, a little more mature. Do any of you remember these things, these telegrams? We must have the Monroe brothers on record. Stop. We won't take no for an answer. Stop. Answer requested. Wow. I'm wondering if any of you out there have heard Bill or his brother talk about this telegram and what they thought when they got wind of it. It's crazy.
Over the next 2 years, Bill and Charlie Monroe recorded 60 songs for Victor's hillbilly and string band label Bluebird. The 54 songs released as 78s included fast and furious old-time favorites, Roll in My Sweet Baby's Arms, 9-Pound Hammer is Too Heavy, and New River Train. But their biggest seller was the first release, Two classic gospel tunes marked by mournful harmonies, What Would You Give in Exchange for Your Soul, and This World Is Not My Home.
Many friends and kindreds has gone on before, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore.
In 1938, based in Greensboro, North Carolina, the brothers split, each forming their own groups. Charlie stayed in North Carolina. After stints in Arkansas and then Atlanta, where he formed a duet with a talented 19-year-old guitarist-singer named Cleo Davis, Bill returned to North Carolina. He told Davis he was going to expand the band and call his group Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. I'm from Kentucky, you know, where the bluegrass grows, and it's got a good ring to it, he said. It would be decades before anyone would call the music bluegrass, but the sound was coming together. Monroe hired a fiddler from North Carolina named Art Wooten and jug player comedian Tommy Millard. He brought in Amos Guerin on stand-up bass, an unusual addition to hillbilly music, and Monroe himself started singing more solos.
Again, innovation. There he goes. This man had a vision or some serious intuition, right? Stand-up bass was never a regular part of these old kinds of bands. What made him go, you know what? Come on in here. Let me hear that thing. What was the first time like with the stand-up bass? Taking Charge, this is going to be the name of the band. I have a grand vision. Just out there, man. Just constantly innovating. Just bringing what he has to offer to all of this. I love it. And look at Dapper Dan right here. Is that a bowler hat? Is that what they call that? Again, the very purposeful tilt of the hat. Just looking sharp. So the stand-up bass is introduced.
His high nasal voice. He was going for his own style, one that blended old-time standards with blues numbers, yodel duets, and gospel.
I think I just missed him talk about the high nasal sound. Let me go back a bit.
19-year-old guitarist-singer named Cleo Davis, Bill returned to North Carolina. He told Davis he was going to expand the band and call his group Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. I'm from Kentucky, you know, where the bluegrass grows, and it's got a good ring to it, he said. It would be decades before anyone would call the music bluegrass, but the sound was coming together. Monroe hired a fiddler from North Carolina named Art Wooten and jug player comedian Tommy Millard. He brought in Amos Guerin on stand-up bass, an unusual addition to hillbilly music, and Monroe himself started singing more solos in his high nasal voice. He was going for his own style, one that blended old-time standards with blues numbers, yodel duets, and gospel. And he knew exactly where he wanted to go with it. To Nashville, Tennessee, home of the top country music radio program in America, the Grand Ole Opry.
Bill Monroe used to kid me and the boys in the band. He'd say, you know WSM, the big radio station there in Nashville, 50,000 watts, clear channel, man, going as far as you can envision, you know, on a Saturday night. That was a big deal back in those days, that Grand Ole Opry. Still is. But back then, you know, it was big radio. Anyway, Bill said, you know what that stands for, don't you? I said, no. William Smith Monroe. That's where they got them call letters. But they didn't.
WSM stands for We Shield Millions, the motto of the National Life and Accident Insurance Company, which launched a radio station in Nashville in 1925. By 1939, when Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys rolled into town seeking an audition, the Grand Ole Opry, WSM's Saturday night country music show, was already an American institution. It was tough to get on, and a regular spot was by invitation, only for performers deemed worthy of Opry membership.